On August 9, 1986, Freddie Mercury walked onto the stage without knowing it would be the last time he ever sang for a stadium crowd. His doctor had begged him to stop. His voice was deteriorating. And somewhere in the audience, a young fan would lose their life during Who Wants to Live Forever? But what happened behind the scenes was even stranger. John Deacon snapped in a rare moment of rage. Freddie vanished the moment the show ended, and the band never performed together with him again. Tonight, we uncover the strange, haunting truth behind Freddie Mercury's final concert, the one Queen never spoke about in full, until now. To understand the strange events of Freddie Mercury's final concert, the story has to start much earlier. Freddie was born on September 5, 1946, in Zanzibar to Parsi parents who practiced the ancient Zoroastrian religion. Even his birth stood out. He had 4 extra teeth, something he later joked helped give him the wide vocal range that made him famous. His childhood blended African, Arab, and Indian influences, shaping the unique flair he would bring to music. At just 8 years old, Freddie was sent to St. Peter's School in Panchgani, India, where a teacher noticed his musical talent and encouraged his parents to invest in lessons. It was there he first began calling himself Freddie and formed his first band, the Hectics. Even as a child, he mixed Western rock with the soaring melodies of Bollywood singers like Lata Mangeshkar, an early sign of the fusion that would later define Queen. Everything changed when Freddie was 17. The violent Zanzibar revolution forced his family to flee to England, where they rebuilt their lives in a modest house in Feltham. Freddie studied art at Isleworth Polytechnic and later at Ealing Art College, supporting himself with odd jobs, including washing dishes at Heathrow Airport. At Ealing, he met Tim Staffel, who introduced him to 2 musicians he admired, Brian May and Roger Taylor of the band Smile. When Staffel left the group in 1970, Freddie stepped in as the new lead singer. He pushed for a new name, Queen, a bold, regal identity he believed matched the music they wanted to create. Their first concert under the name Queen took place that same year. A year later, they completed the lineup by adding bassist John Deacon. Around this time, Freddie adopted the surname Mercury, inspired by a lyric in one of his own songs. Queen didn't explode overnight. Their debut album in 1973 barely made a ripple, and Queen 2 in 1974 only climbed to number 49 in the UK. The band was discouraged, wondering if they would ever break through, until their third album, Sheer Heart Attack, changed everything. The turning point was Killer Queen, Freddie Mercury's sharp, elegant song about a high-class escort. Written almost entirely in one night, it became their first major hit, reaching number 2 in the UK and breaking into the US top 20. Brian May's sixpence coin guitar solo and the song's layered production gave Queen a signature sound, though it caused internal debate. Roger Taylor worried it sounded too soft and might undercut their rock identity. The song was nearly left off the album, but it became their breakthrough. Then came the song that turned them into legends, Bohemian Rhapsody. Released in 1975 on a night at the opera, it was the most expensive single ever made, taking 3 weeks, 180 overdubs, and £40,000 to complete. With its unusual structure, ballad, opera, and rock all in one track, it terrified EMI executives who begged the band to shorten it for radio. Queen refused. Instead, their manager slipped it to DJ Kenny Everett, who played it non-stop for a weekend. Listeners went wild. It held the number 1 spot in the UK for 9 weeks, and again for 5 more after Freddie's death in 1991. In the US, it reached number 9 at first, but after Wayne's World in 1992, it shot back up to number 2. Today, it remains one of the best-selling and most celebrated singles in British history. Queen didn't just reshape rock music, they reinvented the music video. The video for Bohemian Rhapsody, filmed in only 4 hours for 4,500 pounds, was simple but revolutionary. The iconic prism-style shot of the 4 band members came from a visual feedback trick, and it helped turn music videos into a standard part of promoting records. They continued pushing boundaries. In I Want to Break Free, the band appeared in drag, Freddie included, mustache and all, only for MTV to ban it in the US. Meanwhile, Radio Gaga became one of the most expensive videos of its era, costing £100,000 and featuring scenes from Metropolis, for which Queen paid another £100,000. Their live shows became just as legendary. During the 1975 A Night at the Opera tour, Queen used a massive lighting rig with 168 lamps and 12 aircraft landing lights, so large it needed its own generator. By 1986, at Wembley, their setup had grown to over 1,000 lights and even included a giant 5-ton crown above the stage. Freddie Mercury's stage persona transformed just as dramatically. In the early days, he was shy and often stayed behind the piano. His famous half-mic stand began by accident. One night the stand broke, he liked the freedom it gave him, and he kept it permanently. As the years went on, he embraced a more theatrical look. Black nail polish inspired by Jimi Hendrix, glamorous costumes from designer Zandra Rhodes, and the skin-tight harlequin jumpsuit that had to be sewn onto him before each show. By the early 80s, Freddie reinvented himself again with a mustache, leather pants, and military-style jackets, an aesthetic borrowed from New York's gay club scene. He still kept his sense of fun. During the Hot Space tour, he performed atop a crew member dressed as Darth Vader, and in Japan he once stripped down to shorts mid-concert. The 80s also brought musical changes. Freddie and John Deacon pushed Queen toward disco and funk with Hot Space in 1981, a shift many fans didn't appreciate. Body Language, released in 1982, caused even more controversy. Its lyrics and video were considered too provocative, and MTV banned it. Still, Freddie kept experimenting, following his instincts even when the world didn't agree. Freddie's first solo album arrived in 1985 with Mr. Bad Guy, a project he spent 2 years crafting in Munich. Filled with dance rhythms and synthesizers, it showed a very different side of him, playful, experimental, and totally free. In classic Freddie fashion, he dedicated the album to his beloved cats, writing, "This album is for my cat Jerry, and all the cat lovers in the universe. Screw everybody else." It reached the UK top 10, struggled in the US, but it proved to Freddie that he could stand on his own creatively. 2 years later, he took an even bigger leap, teaming up with opera legend Montserrat Caballé for Barcelona. The title track blended opera and rock in a way no one had heard before, showcasing the full power of Freddie's voice. The song later became the anthem for the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, though Freddie didn't live to see it honored. Meanwhile, Queen was falling apart behind the scenes. After the mixed response to Hot Space, tensions exploded. Brian May later admitted, "We hated each other for a while." During the recording of the works in 1984, Brian walked out of the studio for hours, seriously considering quitting. John Deacon disappeared to Bali without telling anyone, surprising even Freddie, who responded by jokingly singing Bali Hai. The band also faced major backlash for performing in Sun City, South Africa, during apartheid. They were banned by the Musicians' Union, criticized by the UN, and even booed at a 1985 show in Rio. On top of that, Freddie's manager Paul Prenter created friction within the group to the point where Brian refused to even say his name. Then came Live Aid. On July 13, 1985, despite vocal problems and exhaustion, Freddie stepped onto the Wembley stage at 6:41 p.m. and changed music history. In just 21 minutes, Queen delivered what many call the greatest live performance ever, with electrifying versions of Bohemian Rhapsody, Radio Gaga, and We Are the Champions. During Radio Gaga, Freddie's call and response with the crowd became iconic. Nearly 2 billion people were watching. Backstage, Elton John summed it up perfectly. "You bastards, you stole the show." Live Aid didn't just revive Queen's career, it brought them back together. After Live Aid, Queen poured their new momentum into a kind of magic. The album began as a soundtrack for Highlander, a film about immortality, and the band used the latest digital technology to give it a fresh, modern sound. The title track came from a line in the movie, but Freddie completely rewrote it, something that annoyed Roger Taylor at the time. Brian May wrote "Who Wants to Live Forever" after watching one emotional scene, and the song ended up featuring a massive 80-piece orchestra. By 1986, Queen planned their most ambitious tour yet, the Magic Tour. In just 8 weeks, they would play 26 shows in 9 countries. The stage was enormous, 160 feet wide, with walkways stretching into the crowd, powered by miles of cables and its own generator. It was one of the loudest, biggest touring setups Europe had ever seen. Then came August 9th, 1986, Knebworth Park. Freddie Mercury stepped on stage at 6:41 p.m., not knowing it would be his final live performance. More than 120,000 fans filled the field. Freddie looked confident in his white tank top and jeans, but he wasn't well. His doctor had warned him that morning. His throat was inflamed and he shouldn't sing. Freddie ignored the advice. He wasn't going to disappoint the audience. His voice cracked during One Vision, but he pushed through. During Under Pressure, when he missed a high note, he simply turned the moment into a crowd sing-along. At 8:03 p.m., Who Wants to Live Forever hit the air. The song suddenly felt personal, almost like Freddie was singing about himself. Bohemian Rhapsody followed at 8:17 p.m., and despite the difficulty, Freddie threw himself into it, even belting parts of the operatic section live. The crowd erupted. For the finale, We Are the Champions. Freddie's voice cracked again, but he leaned into it, holding notes even longer as the audience roared loud enough for nearby towns to complain. At 8:59 p.m., God Save the Queen began to play. Freddie stayed still, eyes closed. When the final chords faded, he bowed deeply and softly said, "Thank you, lovely people. Good night and sweet dreams." It was 9:02 p.m. Freddie Mercury had just performed live for the last time. But behind the scenes at Knebworth, things were far from perfect. Just minutes before the show, the usually quiet and gentle John Deacon shocked everyone. 18 minutes before curtain, he suddenly threw his bass across the dressing room, nearly hitting Roger Taylor's drum tech. In 15 years with Queen, no one had seen him lose control like that. He later muttered to Brian May, "I can't do this anymore, it's too much." It was as if he already sensed this might be their final night with Freddie. Still shaken, Deacon argued with the sound engineer about his bass levels, then walked on stage and delivered one of the best performances of his career. Out in the crowd, tragedy struck. During Who Wants to Live Forever, a 23-year-old fan named Michael Jennings collapsed just 50 meters from the stage. Medics reached him quickly, but they couldn't save him. He was pronounced dead at 9:43 p.m., while Queen was in the middle of Bohemian Rhapsody. The band only learned what happened later. Jennings had an undiagnosed heart condition, made worse by the crushing crowd of 120,000 people. He had won his ticket in a radio contest just 2 days earlier. His friend Sarah said he had been calling it the best night of his life moments before he fell. When the show ended, Freddie Mercury slipped off stage almost instantly. Normally, he stayed to celebrate with the crew, but that night he rushed out, shaken and exhausted. His assistant, Peter Freestone, later revealed that Freddie had received a troubling call from his doctor before the concert, and the news weighed heavily on him. He even left behind his silver bracelet, something he had worn at every show since 1977. A cleaner found it later and returned it. On the ride back to London, Freddie sat silently by the window, wiping his eyes with a handkerchief. At one point backstage, he whispered to Freestone, "I don't know if I can do this." Roger Taylor remembered finding him alone after the show. Freddie looked up and softly said, "Darling, I think I've given it my all." At the time, Roger thought he was just tired. Now he knows Freddie was saying goodbye. John Deacon would later call Knebworth the hardest performance of my life. He said he teared up during "These Are the Days of Our Lives," sensing it could be their last time together. For the entire band, that night felt like the end of an era. And it was. Freddie Mercury's life was filled with deep bonds, complicated love, and private battles. The most important person in his life was Mary Austin. They met in 1969. He was 24, she was 19, and quickly fell in love. They lived together, got engaged, and for years were inseparable. But in 1976, Freddie told her he was bisexual. Mary gently corrected him. "No, Freddie. I think you're gay." Their romance ended, but their friendship only grew stronger. Freddie often said no one meant more to him than Mary, and he treated her as his true family. Even after they parted as partners, he made sure she was cared for. In 1980, he bought her a flat near his home in Kensington. In his will, he left her half his fortune and his mansion. When his health declined, Mary stayed by his side, and after his death, she kept the secret of where his ashes were scattered, exactly as he wished. Freddie's romantic life became more complex in the 1980s. He began a long-term relationship with Jim Hutton in 1985, and the two stayed together until Freddie's death. At the same time, he grew close to Austrian actress Barbara Valentine, and the three of them sometimes spent time together. Freddie's relationships often overlapped, reflecting the emotional chaos he lived with. His struggle with sexuality and public identity shaped much of his life. Growing up in an era when being gay was illegal in many places, he learned early to hide who he was. When questioned about his sexuality, he'd make jokes, calling himself as gay as a daffodil, using humor to dodge the truth. Freddie was more than a singer. He was a passionate art lover. He studied design, collected paintings by Picasso and Dalí, Japanese prints, antique glass, and even commissioned portraits of his cats. His home became a museum of the things he adored. But behind the glamour, Freddie was fighting a battle he kept almost entirely secret. He learned he was HIV positive in 1987, though early signs may have appeared as far back as 1982. Despite rumors and relentless tabloid pressure, he refused to confirm anything. Only a small circle knew the truth. His assistant, Peter Freestone, recalled how Freddie had watched many friends die of AIDS and carried that fear silently. On November 23, 1991, after years of speculation, Freddie released a statement confirming he had AIDS. 24 hours later, he was gone. His final act turned years of silence into honesty and cemented his legacy as a man who lived boldly, loved deeply, and protected those around him until the very end. Even as his health worsened, Freddie Mercury refused to stop making music. In 1990, Queen began recording Innuendo, and the band adjusted everything around him. 3 weeks of work followed by 2 weeks of rest. By then, everyone understood how serious his condition was. Brian May later recalled doctors warning them Freddie didn't have much time, yet Freddie kept insisting on going back to the studio. One song captured that spirit more than anything. "The Show Must Go On." May doubted Freddie could handle its demanding vocals. Freddie took a quick shot of vodka, smiled, and said, "I'll do it, darling." He then recorded the entire track in one take. After Innuendo, he kept pushing. In May 1991, he recorded songs like Mother Love, though he couldn't finish the final verse. His last ever session came on May 22, 1991, when he recorded A Winter's Tale, later released on the posthumous album Made in Heaven. Freddie's final public appearance happened months earlier, on February 18, 1990, at the Brit Awards. Thin, pale, and clearly unwell, he shocked fans, but he still showed up to honor Queen's legacy. Brian May gave most of the speech, while Freddie simply said, "Thank you, good night." Those became his last public words. By mid-1991, Freddie spent nearly all his time inside his Kensington home. Mary Austin, close friends, and Jim Hutton visited often as his condition declined rapidly. His vision faded, movement became difficult, and by November 22nd, he stopped all medication except pain relief. That same day, with manager Jim Beach, he prepared a public statement confirming his AIDS diagnosis. It was released on November 23rd. Freddie Mercury died the next day, November 24th, 1991, at age 45 from AIDS-related pneumonia. Jim Hutton described his final moments as peaceful, saying Freddie looked calm and almost luminous. In the years that followed, his music only grew stronger. In 1995, Queen released Made in Heaven, built from the last vocals he left behind, and it became a worldwide success. Today, Mercury's influence is larger than ever. His songs have billions of streams, and Greatest Hits remains the best-selling album in UK history, a testament to a voice and spirit that never stopped, even at the end.